Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Troy Zoning Board of Appeals, our January meeting. So happy New Year to everyone, and good to see my fellow board members. And as was mentioned, we have 4 board members present tonight. We may have 5, but we're just going to go ahead and get started and start moving through our agenda, and we'll keep going. So we have our printed agenda for tonight, and the first item up for us is the roll call. So Mr. Paul Evans to my right, our liaison from the planning department, if he's ready, he can call the roll for us.
Ms. Chambers.
Present.
Mr. Green.
Present.
Mr. Desmond. Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. Bossenbrook.
I am here. All right, we have quorum. We have 4. We typically have a board of 7 members. We need 4 members for a quorum. So I do have a quorum tonight to proceed with our business. We will move on now to our second item, which is our statement of procedure, which is a description, a summary of how we hear and handle the cases that come before us. And so for that, to my left, our Vice Chair, Mr. Eisenbacher, he will go ahead and read for us this opening statement and our statement of procedure.
Okay. Procedure. The board will hear the items in the order they appear on the approved agenda. When an item is called, the chairperson will verify that an applicant is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. If there is less than the full board, 7 members, present at a meeting, an applicant, shoot, I didn't start at the top. My screen was scrolled wrong. Starting over. Zoning Board of Appeals is a group of 7 of your neighbors appointed by the Troy City Council to decide on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Applicants must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. Procedure. The board will hear the items in the order they appear on the agenda, on the approved agenda. When an item is called, the chairperson will verify that the applicant is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. If there is less than a full board, 7 members, present at a meeting, an applicant may request a postponement so his or her request can be heard by a full board. If there is no request for a postponement, the applicant will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the applicant makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairperson will open the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand, and when recognized by the chairperson, come up to the podium. The speaker should identify themselves with name and address, indicate the relationship to the property in question, for example, next door neighbor, live behind the property, etc., and state whether they are in favor of or against the variance request and give reasons for their opinion. Comments must be directed through the chairperson. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and closely pertain to the matter under consideration. Only one person will be recognized by the chairperson to speak at one time. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairperson will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or postpone the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to Oakland County Circuit Court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eisenbacher. That's our statement of procedure. We will move on now to the third item, which is consideration and approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was in December. Those meeting minutes were provided in the agenda packet, and I trust my colleagues had a chance to review it. Unless there's any questions or discussion, I think we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second.
Ms. Chambers' motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Eisenbacher. I think we're ready for a vote. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Bossenbrook.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
All right, the December meeting minutes have been approved. We'll move on now to our fourth item, which is tonight's agenda and for approval of tonight's agenda. And I will, unless there's any discussion about the matters before us tonight from the board, we'll go ahead and consider tonight's agenda to be approved. All right. Then we'll move on to the fifth item. Fifth item in our agenda tonight is the hearing of our cases. We have two cases before us, two variance requests, one at 1870 Parrott, the second one at 5321 Rochester Road. I will just, at this point, I'll just reiterate what Mr. Eisenbacher just read for the benefit of the applicants who are here tonight. And also for, well, hold on one second, unless we have a board member joining us. So I'll hold off one moment while we wait before we dive into number 5. All right, very good. Looks like we have our fifth member.
My apologies.
Not a problem.
Good afternoon.
A little traffic.
Little.
Mr. Evans, we want to go back to the roll call or just note that?
I've noted that he arrived at 7:10.
Very good. So now we have 5 members of the board to hear the cases tonight. So we'll go on to item number 5. As I was mentioning, just as Mr. Eisenbacher indicated, when we do not have a full board of 7 members, it is the right of an applicant to request an adjournment, simply for the fact that they want to have 7 members of the board potentially to hear their case at the next meeting. We can't guarantee how many members will be at the next meeting, but that is an option. But you have every right to continue tonight with the board as present. Mr. Eisenbacher?
And the important fact on that is that no matter what, it requires 4 affirmative votes. It does not require a majority. So an item would not pass with three affirmative votes.
That's correct. So regardless of how many we have, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6, 7, it requires an affirmative vote to grant a variance request would require 4 votes from board members. So we say that as an option. If that's something that an applicant would like to request, you would need to do that before you start presenting your case, and so we can entertain it from the board, or a board member can also themselves make that request. But having said that, we will proceed with our hearing of cases with item number 5A at 1870 Parrott Street. And Mr. Evans, whenever you're ready, you have a presentation to introduce the case to us. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As per in the agenda, this is a request for 1870 Parrott, a variance request to construct a home addition setback 37 feet from the rear property line, where the zoning ordinance requires the addition be set back 45 feet from the rear property line. I've prepared some aerial maps, and in Parrott, the subject property is about in the middle of this map, surrounded by the red here. This neighborhood is south of Waddles between Coolidge Highway and Northfield Parkway. I'm going to continue to zoom in on the property at 1870 Parrott. Now, this is the site plan provided by the applicant. Parrott's on the bottom, and they're proposing an addition to the rear of the house, and the site plan indicates that it will be 37 feet from the rear property line. As indicated, they need to be 45 feet from the rear property line. That, I believe that's what's there now and is going to be replaced, and they've provided the board some sketches of their proposed addition. So I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Does any board member wish to ask any question for city staff? Not seeing that. All right, then thank you, Mr. Evans, for that presentation. We'll now go to the opportunity for the applicant to present to the board. So if you wish to speak as the applicant for this appeal, please just come to the podium, give us your name relationship to the property, sir, and feel free to proceed.
Sure. My name's Jeff Middledorf. I live at 3755 Edgemont, which is directly next door to the subject property. I'm also the father of Stacy Baker, who lives at the property. And we bought the property 7 years ago when our neighbor and friend had passed away. And Bill and Stacy and our 2 grandchildren moved in. And we learned after a while from the city that in 2013, Glenn Summers, who owned the property before us, had built a room on top of a wooden deck. It was 17 and a half feet by 9 feet deep. So the setback was 40 feet. And the city had approved him to do that. Subsequent discussions with Dana and other members of the city had told us that that should not have been approved. They should not have allowed a building to be built on top of a wooden deck. And we realize now why, because over the last 7 years, the wooden deck has settled, so the doors don't open properly anymore. Rain and snow and ice can come into the room, and we also have some animals that like to live underneath the deck. No matter what we do to block it, they dig underneath. So our proposal was to demolish this completely and then to put a new structure on it. Will be 3 foot further depth, like Paul said, resulting in a 37-foot setback, and make it on a cement foundation. So I think it meets some of the criteria that you guys had set forth in the ABCDE. It's not personal. It's not because of something that we did or that Glenn did. The property itself is about 25% smaller than all the lots around it. For some reason, that's the way it was. And we wanted to make the area safe for one reason. We want to get rid of it. We have to get rid of it one way or the other. And we'd like to replace it with a more substantial room and one that's more functional. We do have a chimney that goes up there that obstructs a little bit takes some of the square footage away also, which is another reason why we were wanting to have a few extra feet. Obviously, I live next door with my wife. We approved it, and we asked the neighbors on both sides, and I think Paul might have had letters attached, and the people behind, and they had no problem with the project either. So that's kind of the long and short of the story is why we wanted to proceed, make it a little bit bigger, to make it a bit more functional, and make it, above all, safer. And I think one of the items you guys had mentioned in the practical difficulty was about, is it going to make the property less valuable? We think it'll make it more valuable and only enhance the neighborhood. It's not a safety issue. It's not fire issue, blocking the sun or air, any of that type of stuff. It's just another 3 feet, same depth, same width. So
Okay.
that's pretty much all I have to say, unless there's something you wish to ask me, folks. And we did want to thank Paul, irregardless of the outcome tonight, for all his help. He was very helpful in getting us to this point.
Yeah, well, thank you. We thank you for coming here. Let me just make sure any board members have questions for our applicant. And just to be clear, you are representing the property?
Yes, that's correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right, very good. Any board members wish to ask questions? Present any questions? Mr.
I do. You mentioned that the property is smaller. You talking about the parcel itself or just the house?
Yes, the parcel is .31 acres.
Okay.
We are .43, the one behind them is .41, and the next is .40, so about 20% smaller than the surrounding properties. Yeah, you can kind of get an idea from that aerial view that Paul helped us with.
Which property do you live at?
We live at the 3755, the corner of Edgemont and Parrott.
Okay. Mr. Eismacher?
So the picture of I would just want to clarify.
Yes.
The picture of the existing room and the replacement room will be identical?
The thing that will be different about it is it will come out 3 additional feet.
Okay.
So the setback is 40 feet right now. It'll be 37 feet. And the difference will be that it'll be on a cement foundation. It'll have a bit of a peak this way instead of sloping off of that. Otherwise, it'll be the same. It'll be the same width, a couple inches difference, that's it. And the depth is the main one. It's going from 9 to 12.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think we have all we need at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming up here. At this point, we will open up the public hearing on this matter. So if there's anyone here who would like to speak to this variance request, you're welcome to come to the podium up front and state your name and what you'd like to say with regard to this. Okay, don't have anyone here to speak to it. I believe there may be a couple written correspondence. I don't know if Mr. Eisenbacher, if you can note that for the record, what we have in writing regarding public comment.
Yes, we received a letter, it's page 33 of our complete agenda packet, from 1879 Pelican, where the homeowner has viewed the proposed building plans, and they have no problems with the project moving forward as proposed. And then second neighbor on the following page of our agenda packet, page 34, at 1886 Parrot, and they say they've also viewed the proposed building plans for the backroom addition on the house, and they have no concerns about the project moving forward as proposed.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I don't see anyone else to speak, so we'll close the public hearing for this appeal. And at this point, we'll take it back to the board members, having heard comments from the petitioner, applicant, public comment portion, now to discuss resolution of this variance request. So if there's any board member that wishes to be recognized for discussion purposes or to make a motion, Mr. Green?
To me, this is actually fairly straightforward. We have something where the city essentially approved something they shouldn't at some point. It was built. The previous homeowner did their due diligence and it was passed through. And that was already beyond the setback without variance permitted. So there is no variance on it right now, but the city approved it mistakenly already. So that piece, this is not of the current or previous homeowners making. The property is smaller than the surrounding ones, particularly the one directly behind. I believe that one was 1879. It's like half the size because that one includes that massive backyard with the trees, as opposed to theirs, which is actually shrunken. And that does make the depth and general compliance relative to their neighbors more difficult. The extra 3 feet is immaterial because the original is it 3 feet? The original several feet that are already there, 5 feet, are already non-compliant but approved, so it's still for 8. But I think that's right. But it is not substantially in addition to what is physically already there and approved by the city. And this will be an improvement to the home because right now it is currently unsound, unsafe, and should never have existed in its current situation. But the homeowner, I do not feel, should not be punished for trying to make their structure sound and safe, which, while it may not be an immediate problem in that regard, we've heard about the animals and the breeze, and like that is, I wouldn't want my house that way. That doesn't seem appropriate to not be able to fix that without us granting a variance and to then lose square footage that the city previously approved, regardless of whether it was in error. To me, that doesn't make any sense. So, and because there is such a large lot behind it that is vacant in the area directly behind it, this to me does not impact the security or safety. In fact, it improves the general security and safety of the area and that particular property. So to me, I would approve this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green, for your thoughts. Any other board members wish to speak?
I'll
Mr.
just
President?
say that was pretty thorough and pretty much everything I'm seeing too, so I agree with everything that Mr. Green stated. I don't see any impact this backing up to that back lot, and honestly, it's more of a devaluation in the neighborhood should that existing structure continue to decay in its current state, because it's not going to get better. So I agree. I would support.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Desmond. Did you have your hand up, Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
All right. Go for it.
I'd like to make a resolution to approve the variance request for 1870 Parrot be granted for the following reasons. A, exceptional characteristic for the property which the variance is sought is the smallness and the existing structure that was approved in the past. B, it is this property. It's not another property, another location. C, it's not of a personal nature. D, it's not created by the current or the previous owner. And E, the proposed variance is not harmful or alter the essential character of the area and the other items in E.
Okay. Motion, second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I think we're prepared for a vote. Mr. Evans, so the motion on the table is to grant, so that would be a yes to grant or a no to deny.
Mr. Desmond,
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by 5 votes. So thank you, sir, for coming and presenting your case. Variance has been granted. So we will move on to our second item now. We'll move on to our variance request at 5321 Rochester Road. And Mr. Evans, when you're ready, feel free to go ahead and present on that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a variance request to divide a land parcel into 2 parcels, each having 81.54 feet width and frontage, where the zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 85 feet width and frontage. This is an aerial of the neighborhood. This property is located adjacent to and west of Rochester Road, north of Long Lake Road. And I'll continue to zoom in on the outline parcel. It's the corner of Trinway and Rochester. That's a close-up there, 5321 Rochester Road. Now, this is a blow-up of the survey they provided to our assessing department with the lot split application. And this is the existing property. And what they want to do is essentially bisect it to create 2 properties. Each of them have 81.54 feet of width and frontage along Trinway. And that's less than the required 85 feet of width and frontage. So in order to proceed with this parcel split, they're seeking relief from the board. I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Mr. Green, do you have a question for the board?
Yeah,
Or the
if, yes, if the lot were to be split evenly along Rochester as opposed to along Trenway, would that alleviate, or would that remove this concern?
Just doing quick math in my head, it looks like there's 147 feet along Rochester. I don't think they would have 85 for either one of them.
Ms. Chambers?
I have a question. At the site, is there anything going on there currently? At the site?
Hold on. Let's wait till they,
Oh,
that's fine.
okay.
Yeah, we'll just,
All right.
if any questions you have for maybe Mr. Evans or our attorney, that's fine. Just to make sure we have it all on the record. Any other questions? I do have one question, Mr. Evans. I don't know if you're the one to answer this, but they make reference to a document that they received that was an error from the city of Troy that misstated the width of the lot. I think they included that in the packet. Do you know the context in which that would have been given to the applicant?
I can only speculate because I don't believe it was from our department, certainly it wasn't from me.
Okay,
Perhaps the applicant can.
all right, I'll ask the applicant. Mr. Green?
The property, if split, on one side has a sidewalk substantially encroaching on one edge of it. Would that also further restrict the ability to build?
The fact that there's sidewalks along Rochester Road?
Not that there's a sidewalk along Rochester, but because of setback requirements from even the sidewalk. I don't believe there is one, but I just want to make sure that that wouldn't impact.
I'm not aware, as the property is laid out now, what is going to restrict them from, say, building a single-family residential from building a single-family home. So perhaps the applicant, if there are encumbrances, they can talk about that.
But baseline, no. Thank you very much.
All right, don't see any more questions for city staff, so we'll invite the petitioner or their representative to come forward when they're ready. Please, state your name, relationship to the property, and the nature of your request.
Christopher Bahura. I work for the property owner. We were given wrong information, incorrect information. It wasn't from assessing, it was from I believe, the building department when we came in during our due diligence period. So we were given 238 feet. So doing the math with all the setback requirements, we figured we had more than enough room. Now, when we applied for the application, it was denied, obviously. When we did the survey, that's when we found out. So as far as it being split down the middle, it wouldn't affect anything sidewalk. We're going to stay far away from it. The house width and everything will conform with, with everything. We have proposed, and I included in the package, 2 ranch homes. I think it fits the need for the area. Very nice. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can think of. I think that's it for now.
Okay, any board members have questions?
Now's the time.
Yeah, Ms. Chambers?
I was on Rochester Road today going south, and I saw some construction going on, and I was following the address numbers. So you have already done your demolition?
Not yet.
No, okay.
No, we're still
Then
existing house.
it must have been, because I watched all the numbers, and as I got to the area, ooh, there's a house going up.
Yeah, there's.
Not yours.
Not ours yet.
Okay, okay,
Behind it and in front, and on the other side of Trinway,
okay.
there's some more construction going on.
I understand that, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Eisenbacher.
Okay, so the property just to the north, you don't control? You don't have ownership of?
No.
Okay. Because, yeah, I've seen construction there, and it actually shows up on Google Earth. And then another question occurred to me for the city staff that I'll ask during questions about the.
And we did include
Future use.
the proposed build in the packet. I don't know if you guys were able to see that or not.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Evans, can you pull up page 43 in the packet? I'm looking at the parcel number, property ID, legal description on the right-hand side near the top. And I just want to confirm with the applicant that that's the 238.08 feet that,
Which page am I pulling up?
sorry, 43, sorry. The application for description change. There. Yeah, that top corner there, is that the portion that you were speaking to, the THE 238.08 feet, TH, et cetera, and then THW 238.08 feet to begin?
I wasn't referring to that. I was referring to a printout that I got when I came in and spoke to the building department.
Okay. So this is not the reference document?
Oh,
I ask because it then specifies accepting or excluding east 75 feet to be taken for road. which would have been the indication that it's 238.08
Yeah,
minus 75.
there was a legal, and I just copied the legal description when I filled out the application.
Got it. So this, you submitted this before you received that or after?
So before we even purchased the property, we came into the city and got this. And then going through all the, knowing that we had 85 feet as a minimum, it checked out for us. Yeah.
And that's the thing from the city, that's the document? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I want to just understand kind of the chronology when you talk about the practical difficulties. So before you purchased that lot, you went to the city and got that printout, and then I made the assumption that that was the width of the parcel. Did you do your own independent survey before you purchased the property to determine that the width, or were you relying solely on the city for that?
I was relying solely on the city. Usually when we do a survey, if it's cutting it close, I'll go in and do a survey just because, it could be off by a few feet. But we, looking at the 238, we just thought there was, even if there was a few feet, we would have more than enough.
And just to follow up on Mr. Green's question, though, but I mean, when you look at the legal description, it does seem to carve out the 75 feet.
Yep.
So did you consult an attorney or a real estate attorney or something to understand the nature of the parcel, the legal description, what it actually meant, like what kind of easements, encumbrances, things that you were buying subject to the property?
Yeah, I didn't even look at the legal description until we filled it out, unfortunately.
Okay. Mr. Green?
Sorry, I'm not trying to use you as my PowerPoint. Can you go to 46? Page 46. That's, I think, the document, the sheet in particular that you received from the city that's in question. And yeah, if you look there at the baseline, that's where it says 238.08, and then it's 75 and 75 at the top and bottom of the plot. This is the sheet that you received that gave you that impression, correct? Mm-hmm. That's what you were working off of. Okay, thank you. The application for split was, I think, 10/18, give or take, of last year. When did you receive that from the city approximately, and when did you then go through? You said you did that before you purchased the property, correct?
Yeah.
And so approximately, when did you receive that, and when did you make the purchase?
It says on the bottom, August 8th, 2022.
Cool. And then you closed before the application, the October, I assume? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I want to go back to just another question. So one of the things that we have to look at under the statement of practical difficulty is item A. So we have to look at all five and make sure all five are satisfied in order to grant a variance. A requires us to look at, is there something exceptional about the property itself? And so I just want to make sure, and then it gives things like narrowness, shallowness, smallness, something irregular about the property. What is it about the parcel itself that is going to support the variance request? Is it simply the error on the part of the city, or is there something else about the property that you're pointing to for us to consider?
It wasn't just the error. I think the uniqueness of the property is the location and the proposed houses that we want to build. I think it'll bring value to the neighborhood, and it will fit a need of having, a ranch, single-family home, 2 of them on there. That's pretty much it, but yeah, it's
Okay.
not solely on the city, I will say.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? I think that's all we have at this point. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it coming up. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Unless there's anyone who wishes to step forward. Sir, feel free. Please state your name and relationship, maybe where you live, relates to the property, and please go ahead and proceed with your public comment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, name is Rex Brown. I live next door at 949 Trinway. And I've lived there for 22 years. This property has been for sale probably at least 10 times in the last 22 years. And almost every time the people that were looking to buy it approached the city to find out if they could subdivide it, because it was a larger parcel. And each time, apparently the city or somebody must have told them no, because each time the sale fell through. And so when this property was sold approximately 2 or 3 years ago, not to this buyer, but to the previous buyer, same thing. We were on the verge of buying the property if it was going to be subdivided and turned into condos or whatever. But in any case, the realtor assured me that the buyer was planning a single-family home and he was going to reside there. So but for whatever reason, he decided to move up to Lapeer. He sold the property to these gentlemen here. And, but I can tell you that each time the property came up for sale, I was in contact with the realtor. Each time I was given the exact property dimensions. It was never 238. I do admit that the 75-foot, for the widening of Rochester Road, which is supposed to happen in the next 2 years, is a bit confusing there. But the realtors always gave me the exact dimensions. In addition to that, we have on the north side of Trinway, we have 14 houses, each with a minimum width of 85 to 158 feet wide, with an average front width of 106 feet of frontage. On the south side, the first 6 lots, 568 feet, are anywhere from 85 to 119 feet wide, averaging 95 feet in width. So the parcels in that area are all minimum or up to 158 feet. I mean, they're all big parcels in width and so forth. Now, the developer here also showed some pictures of a proposed house and so forth, which do not fit the essential character of the neighborhood, at least from what I saw. All the houses in there are brick houses. Some are 2-story, some are 1-story, but nothing quite like that photo that you had up on the screen a couple of minutes ago. What else can I say? As far as having a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant a variance, like you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I don't see any practical hardship or practical difficulty other than maybe the buyer didn't, whatever realtor he went through or whatever, didn't give him the proper dimensions he claims. But like I say, every realtor I talked to always told me it was 163 by 147. And it was not, according to zoning, was not big enough to be subdivided. Let's see, having talked to Mr. Evans the other day, with the widening of Rochester Road planned in the next couple of years, that's why they need the 75 feet of width coming in there to allow, and the sidewalk may or may not fit into that, I don't know, if the sidewalk's going to be there or might be gone or whatever. But there's also a 15-foot easement inside the fence of the property to take care of electrical, gas, and everything else. So there's going to be a 15-foot easement inside the fence instead of outside the fence on the Rochester Road side, which further narrows the amount of available space for building a house there. The house you're talking about just north of that is a 6,000 square foot house with an in-ground pool and tennis courts and everything else, but that's a separate deal. But anyway, let's see. Yeah. So in order to be entitled to relief by variance, there's 3 factors that I came across in the city charter there. Property cannot be used for the purpose permitted in the zoning district. Well, the property is R1C, it's residential single family, and certainly the property can be used for that. Any plight is due to unique circumstances peculiar to this property, not due to general neighborhood conditions. That really doesn't apply whatsoever. And suggested use would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Well, essential character of the neighborhood, like I say, is wide lots, 85 to 150 feet, brick construction. And I don't know if we can put that photograph up again that the fellows showed. I don't know, Mr. Evans or somebody else can put that up. But it certainly was not anything like the first 10 houses in the neighborhood. I mean, it's beautiful, it looked like a beautiful house, but just didn't fit the character of the neighborhood. Let's see. I guess that's mainly what concerns that I have as the next door neighbor for the last 22 years. I mean, right now, of course, the property's got a barn that's falling apart and a little cinder block house that's in sad shape. So certainly, anything would be an improvement over that, but
So just to be clear, I take it you do not support the variance request?
I really don't support it, at least certainly from the things I stated, and also if we could, can we get that picture up there again, Mr. Evans, or no?
Mr. Evans, are you asking, you can ask me.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Are you asking to have the photo of the proposed residence up there?
Yes.
Mr. Evans, could you, I think it's the last couple slides. Is that what you're referring to, sir?
Yeah. So that's nothing like what we've got. And as a matter of fact, that looks like the full width, that would be the full width of the property, I think. That wouldn't be, well, 81 feet minus 10-foot setback on one side, 15-foot easement on the other, 25, so you're down to 56-foot wide, available space to put the front of a house. And there's no way you can put that many garages, that much house into a 56-foot space.
Well, thank you, sir. I think, Mr. Eisenbacher, we have maybe a question for you, sir.
Okay. I was trying to see on the map, one thing that has happened in the past when applicants didn't have enough space is they simply purchased some property from a neighbor. So I don't know if is your house wider than the 85 feet? Or your
No, I have an 85-foot lot.
You have an 85, okay.
I do have an 85, because these were recently subdivided. The lady on the south side on the corner had like 6 parcels of land, and then she passed away, I think 10 or 12 years ago, and that's when that got subdivided into anywhere from 85 to 120-foot parcels on the south side of Trinway, just west of Rochester. So no, as a matter of fact, I would have considered buying some of this to widen my property if I could, but that was
Okay.
not, and I actually did talk to the realtor about that possibility. I said if the person that's buying it doesn't need that much space, I would be interested in talking to him about purchasing, some of the adjacent property, but that didn't turn out to work out.
Okay, so that's the first question. So I mean, that means they're constrained by a road, Rochester Road on one side and constrained by your house on the other. So
Yes.
they can't abate it with
No.
adding
No,
property.
because my house is 10 foot from the,
Yeah.
so there's no additional space available.
If the front of the house were brick or matching more to the neighborhood, would you be more amenable to this?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if it fit the character, but if you drive down the street, you'll see all the houses basically are brown brick or maybe red brick. They're all,
I know it won't have pine trees. Or not palm trees.
I mean, I admit
more likely to have
I
pine
admit it's
trees.
a beautiful house, but you can't fit two of those into 81 and a half feet of space, and have the setbacks and the easement for 15 feet lost on the Rochester Road side because of the easement inside the fence, so.
'Cause, I mean, that's one of the things that we can discuss as a board is the look of the house and having it match. the
Yeah, I mean, does it-
neighborhood. So if there were 2 houses that matched the neighborhood and had
Does it-
the setbacks, would you be amenable to it as the most direct neighbor?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would like to see the proposed, but yeah, I mean, I would be more agreeable, definitely.
Because we want to take care of the concerns of the neighbors, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay?
But I mean, like I say, to propose this, there's no way that would ever fit.
Well, they're not requesting a setback
No, I understand.
variance, so
No, I understand.
we're not even discussing that. They have
No.
to meet what you said, the 10 feet and 15 feet and.
Yeah, so that leaves 56
Yeah.
feet for a house, so.
Yep, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Green?
You'd mentioned that things are fairly wide in general across those
Yes.
lots. And if I'm looking here on the other side of Trunway, a little bit further in, it's a very sort of mixed bag, but there are at least
It's-
2, 3,
there-
couple 3 where they're
Like-
like 65.
Well, I can tell you exactly how many there are, but those were all subdivided. That Turnway used to be just farmland. These were all subdivided before the city was incorporated, before there was a master plan. And so that's how there are several houses on the street down at the west end, in the middle and west end, that are 63 feet. in width, but like I say, that was all subdivided and done before the city was a city, and there was no master plan.
So in that, they could match the character in that way, but not that.
Well, these houses are a minimum of 568 feet down the road, so almost 600 feet. And like I say, those first 6 houses are anywhere from 85 to 120 feet wide. And then the couple of smaller 63-footers come in, then there's 127, then a 63, another 127. So that was before 1955.
So, and I am in no way here to broker a deal. Would you be more amenable to something where a split and an increase occurred where you picked up 15 or 20 from one side and they were able to sell that to you and they could still build a home so that both parties, not that this is a two-party affair, but where both parties would gain out of it, you would increase the width of your plot, as I understand it, and then
But then they
wouldn't get 2, but
they don't have room for one house then,
yes. But
and
they
that
would
may not
still
be what they're interested in.
get something out of
But
it. Okay, that's just trying to understand that. Thank you.
my understanding was that, I don't know if they went through a realtor or if they bought it privately, because I never did see a for sale sign when they purchased the property from a realtor, so maybe it was a private deal, I don't know. And they didn't get all the specs.
Well, thank you, sir.
Okay,
For your time tonight,
okay, well, thank you.
giving your public comment, we appreciate it. Unless there's any further public comment, I don't think there's anything in the packet correspondence-wise, so we will close the public hearing. I will invite the applicant, if they would like to come back up to respond or add any additional information in light of the public comment that they would like the board to hear. You may come forward and address the board.
Sure. In regards to the design of the house, this is just the proposal, so as far as the layout goes, it will fit. We're not asking for any setback variances. It's a stucco. This is a new style that we see a trend in, so we thought it would work, but if we have to make it work with brick or something, we're definitely not opposed to it. But this is where we see the trend going the next few years. Seeing a lot of these going up, so that's why we thought this would look good.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yeah, more specifically, if in keeping the style of the house in line with the neighborhood, if it were part of the requirement that it be matching in terms of brick, would you be, I mean, would that work for you? Sure.
Yeah, we're not opposed to that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. All right. So at this point, we will now bring it back to the board for deliberation. Mr. Desmond?
Just have just a quick comment, just looking on the active MLS currently with the public record data that's available through the MLS, it can be pulled up by any agent or broker. It does specify that the land dimensions of the lot are 147 by 163. So I'm not, there's no other implications in that. I'm just saying that's what the immediately accessible information is that I can see from this, so.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Green.
I have a direct counter to that. While that is accurate, I'm looking at ArcGIS from City of Troy. So the GIS surveying shows that same 238 live today, and it is clearly mapped. If you click on that 238, it shows you the border of the property, and it as plotted, and that it's at both sides, and it clearly rings it in a highlighted neon sort of teal. It's the 75, as shown on the map, is also noted, and if you click it, it says no information available. But that one is clearly that, and if you click on similar ones across the map, the properties, whatever, that it frames those plats, those properties, the parcels as they are. I do not see anywhere else where that number is off like that. I'm sure it exists, but where it is off like that, so there is something odd going, because while the property is clearly the one and is stated by the assessor's office has that 75-foot easement, that is not even clearly not indicated. It is clearly contraindicated by the GIS survey as provided to the applicant. I'm still torn. I'm disinclined to grant it on that basis because the information is available and is on the assessor's document. But when he requested the information from the city, I think he also has a fair expectation to receive accurate data upon that request. And so and if he were to look at this as any citizen could, or anyone could, that's tricky. So I am also sympathetic to the individual who came up, the neighbor who is in general opposition, at least as currently indicated, despite changes. I don't know if the goal of the purchase was to build 2 homes and live in them both with family, or to sell one, and that's immaterial. But I can see how he's in a difficult spot. He's got 2 sources of official information that are in conflict. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know what to do with that.
I can see what it is you're saying on that report. It's almost like that little slice that they have for where the sidewalk dips in got arbitrarily added to the one system, but not to the other. So I could see that. And again, I'm all for development, so this is not me saying I don't want 2 houses to go in there. It was just informational. But I can see what you're saying, and you're right. That is very confusing.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
I have a question for the city that I should have asked 3 days ago, but didn't think of at that time. So you had time to research it. When Rochester Road is widened to a boulevard in this area, is there any expectation the city will need additional property? Or is this 75 foot that was taken in 1994 adequate?
I was advised by engineering, actually, that they do not need to acquire any further property.
So it's enough?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times our board gets some very large and very intrusive requests for variance. This is relatively small at 1.5 feet per property. And I do see the neighbor's point that the houses need to blend in. It needs to be congruous. It's in our ordinance. I don't think it would be noticeable to anyone in the neighborhood that 2 of the properties are 1.5 feet narrower if the house is matched.
Sorry,
But
sir. Sorry, sir.
I want to hear. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Make sure I get the right number here. Double check. So yeah, 163 divided by 2, so it's 81.5 versus 85. So yeah, so 3.5 feet for each property. More noticeable than 1.5 feet, but still, as a percentage, relatively small to the overall width of the house, especially when the setbacks on the 2 sides are still going to be maintained, because that's usually what comes before us as a board is they want to have it closer to the neighbors. They're maintaining that width. So I'm open to this, and I'd like to hear all of my colleagues' thoughts on the matter.
Well, I think I am at this point not in support of the variance request. I think the whole concern about what the city, the information from the city, to the extent that it applies, I think it applies to D, potentially, not something created by the current or previous owner. I still think that, generally when people purchase property, either they or their attorney or their real estate agent or someone, publicly available information, has a responsibility to understand the dimensions, the easements, the setbacks, all the encumbrances that are on the property, to really understand what they're purchasing and what their limitations are. But even with that, I don't think it satisfies A. I don't see an exceptional characteristic to the property. I appreciate the desire to build on that property. I drive by it all the time, and it's a shabby-looking house, and it would be much better use with, a single-family residence or two. But as was pointed out, it can be used in its current configuration. Someone just has to buy the property, knock down the current house, and build a new one. It can be used for that purpose. It doesn't need to be split to be used. And I don't see anything that would identify that makes it exceptional. That's what kind of one of the core things we have to look at is what is it about the property itself that makes it unique from all the properties around it. Things like narrowness, shallowness, smallness, et cetera. I don't see any of that here, so I'm not in support of the variance request at this point. And just to add also, we have to have all 5 satisfied. So I understand other ones I would see being satisfied, but I don't see A being satisfied here, based on the record. I'm sorry, Mr. Green, did you have a?
I tend to agree with you. The property is not inherently exceptional. It's a little bit odd that it has this forethinking easement already with the 75 feet built in, not the same as some of the ones surrounding it, but that doesn't prohibit it, as noted, being used in its current state, knockdown build, as a single-family residential. The dimensional requirements are related to the premises. The characteristics which make it difficult are of a personal nature to me. The person specifically, which is to split, that doesn't have to happen. That's a personal choice it could be built on. And while I agree it's unfortunate that 3.5 feet is the difference, and that is the purpose of our board, that's not the requirement, despite that purchasing it, splitting it, building it, and selling one of them or both may have been the original intent. That's still a personal use of the property or attempt to use the property that is different from the currently permitted one. And the dimensional requirements, that's not their creation. That's the part where I think also the confusion on the assessor versus GIS and versus the MLS data also comes into play. But as I mentioned, there are different ways where you could offer a split that while you couldn't build 2 properties, you could still derive some return from it potentially, and that wouldn't require us necessarily as a board. So while I'm sympathetic, I can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Anyone? Mr. Desmond?
I just want to, for the record again, just make sure that the applicant's aware that not having a full board and needing all 5 votes, 4 votes, he's rolling the dice with less people. He still has the opportunity, am I correct, to push this forward and try with a full board. Is that accurate?
So,
Or
yeah.
past that point?
Well, yeah, we gave some guidance at the beginning. Once I think we start the hearing and hearing the evidence, then we're moving forward at this point. So,
Okay.
But we did discuss that earlier a couple times. So,
All right.
yeah. Any member of the board wish to make a resolution or a motion? Any further discussion? Mr. Green?
I will move to deny, I move that the variance request for the applicant at 5321 Rochester Road for the request to split, allowing a variance of 3.5 feet for each plot, be denied because I do not believe the applicant has demonstrated, as I've previously stated, that the exceptional characteristics would be more difficult than relative to other properties, for the great majority of the other properties in the same zoning district. Notably, the characteristics of the property that we shall consider, including exceptional narrowness, shallowness, smallness, irregular shape, topology, vegetation, and other similar characteristics. I do not believe that that has been met. The characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult must be related to the premises for which the variance is sought, not some other location. The characteristics which make compliance with the dimensional requirements shall not be of a personal nature. The characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult must not have been created by the current or a previous owner, and the proposed variance will not be harmful or alter the essential character of the area in which the property is located, will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property, or unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets, or increase the danger of fire, or endanger the public safety, or unreasonably diminish or impair established property value within the surrounding area, or in any other respect impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city.
So just, hold on, just to clarify, so you've read the,
The deny template.
is there specific, I guess, findings you want to attach to any of those or to support your motion?
May I restate?
There's no second.
There's no second yet, so it's,
Okay. I move that the variance request for 5321 Rochester Road for a split with a variance granted for 3.5 additional feet, fewer feet of property width be denied for the following reasons. The applicant has not demonstrated that the exceptional characteristics of the property for which the variance is sought make compliance with dimensional requirements substantially more difficult than would be the case for the great majority of properties in the same zoning district. Notably, the property as it stands can be used as zoned and is comparable in many ways to the properties surrounding it in that zoning district. The characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult are related to the premises, not another location. However, the characteristics which make compliance with the dimensional requirements are of a personal nature insofar as it stands currently, it could be used by the homeowner for its current zoned purpose, and his intentions, as I understand them, are of a personal nature. Additionally, the characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult are arguably created by a conflict of information, but it was still in the property owner's purview to perform due diligence to ensure that this was possible, and therefore I suspect that this would have been created by the current owner. That said, the proposed variance I do not believe would be harmful or impair, etc., that property or negatively impact that property or the surrounding properties. For that reason, I move that we deny the request.
is there a second? I'll second. Motion by Mr. Green to deny, I seconded. Any further discussion? I don't see any. So I think we're ready for a vote, Mr. Evans. So this would be a motion to deny, so yes would be to deny. We need 4 votes to approve that motion. Yes.
A denial motion only needs a simple majority. You only need 4 votes for approval.
I'm sorry. Thank you for that correction. So a simple majority to deny.
Mr. Eisenbach,
No.
Ms. Chambers,
No.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Desmond.
No.
Okay. Motion to deny does not pass.
Consider a motion to grant, if somebody wanted to make that motion.
Do we have a motion to grant? Mr. Eisenbacher.
I'd like a reminder, when we put a stipulation on the approval, because I think one important thing is that the houses match the neighborhood. And defining match the neighborhood is impossible. Because I know this is something that's not contained in the zoning ordinance because you can't define aesthetics very well. And I believe it's within our purview to say that they would have to have a brick facade similar to other houses in the neighborhood as a portion. Would that be enforceable by your department?
So would a stipulation that the house have a brick facade be enforceable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I thought brick facade was part of the zoning ordinance for residential neighborhoods.
I'd have to look at it again to find.
Or I'm thinking an
I'm not sure if it's that
older
specific.
version.
Yeah, it might be. I'd have to look. I
Okay.
didn't expect this to come up, so I'm not.
It's only 700 pages.
350.
850, yeah. Okay. We'll see where this goes. I'd like to make a resolution to approve the variance request for 3.46 feet variance per property. The exceptional characteristic for which the variance is sought was a misunderstanding regarding the data related to the property at the time of purchase. It is related to this property for item B. For item C, it's not of a personal nature. It's for the construction of a residential home. D, characteristic was not created by the current or previous owner. And E, it does not alter or be harmful to the essential character of the neighborhood, with the stipulation that the facade of the house be brick, as is common in the neighborhood. And again,
Second, that was the completion of the motion.
yes, for 5321 Rochester.
A motion for Mr. Eisenbacher, seconded by Mr. Desmond. Don't know that we have any further discussion on the pending motion. So I think we are prepared to vote. Mr. Evans, on the motion to approve the variance request.
Ms. Chambers.
I have to honestly say I have waffled. I cannot make a decision at this point.
Yeah, there's a motion to
Okay.
grant. Yes.
Can I,
How would you like to vote?
okay, I'll vote yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
No.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Desmond,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes. Motion passed.
Motion fails.
Me right now, we're back there.
I'll look at deadlock.
I'm sorry?
Motion does not pass,
Correct.
does not have 4 votes.
People.
And a motion to approve that's denied that doesn't pass, is the equivalent of a denial of the variance. So the variance is at this point denied.
You can't.
Motion is denied at this point because it did not have sufficient votes to be passed. So that will be the action on item B, 5321. And that will conclude the hearing of our cases tonight, which means we will move on to item number 6, which is our communications. Mr. Evans, any communications?
Yes, I received this from the Michigan Association of Planning. It's possible you all have this?
Oh,
Yes. And I'd like to bring your attention to a March 14th event, Advanced ZBA, Beyond the Fundamentals, a virtual training session. And you should be receiving an email from Jackie of our office in the next few days. If anyone is interested in participating in that, city will work with you to get you signed up and cover that cost.
What was the date for that, Mr. Evans?
Advanced ZBA, Beyond the Fundamentals, on March 14th, calendar of events.
Okay. That's a virtual, was that's a virtual event?
Right.
Okay. All right. Any other communications?
That will do it.
Okay. Move on to item number 7, any other miscellaneous business? I don't believe we have anything.
Correct, we do not.
Item number 8, any further public comment? Not seeing any public comment. We will now then adjourn tonight's meeting, and we'll see you in February. Thank you.